Spotlight.
This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Northeast India, an emerging investment hub. The participants are Sandeep Hukan, senior journalist, and Diksha Saxena, Akashvani correspondent. Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated Advantage Assam 2.0 Investment and Infrastructure Summit 2025 in Guwahati this morning. The summit is being held from 25th to 26th February. To discuss more on this, we are joined by senior journalist Mr. Sandeep Hukan. Mr. Hukan, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Mr. Hukan, before we get into the nitty-gritties of the subject, I would first want you to briefly explain what Advantage Assam 2.0 Investment and Infrastructure Summit 2025 is. What is the idea behind organizing a summit like this, and when was the first edition of this summit organized?
As the name suggests, Advantage Assam 2.0 is actually the second edition of the investment summit. This was first started by the BJP government, then led by Mr. Sarbananda Sonowal in 2018. So they had come up with this idea, on the lines of many states have these investment summits. Different states are actually attracting investors to their states based on what they can offer to the investor. In this edition of the investment summit, the chief minister has actually gone out of his way to woo investors. He's held road shows. He's visited countries like Singapore. He's visited countries like South Korea, inviting them that come and set up plants in our state. We will do whatever we can in terms of ease of business and allowing to set up one very big plant that is coming up right now, and which will be commissioned later this year, is the semiconductor plant in Jagi Road, which is barely an hour's drive from Guwahati, not even an hour actually. I think the chief minister is very keen that he can facilitate businesses and investment in whatever sector. There is no sector specific focus. I mean, traditionally Assam is known for industries like tea garden, tea industry, oil and coal. But moving beyond these traditional sectors of industry, I think the government is focusing that whoever wants to come and set up shop, they're most welcome. We will do our bit to help you in terms of giving permissions and facilitating the business. The focus being on creation of employment.
In fact, adding on to what you said, Mr. Hukan, even Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized that from the traditional definition of Assam, we are moving far beyond that. Summits like these are not just focused on enhancing development in just one state. It has ripple effect on the entire region, especially when the government is committed to fuel growth in the northeastern region. Could you throw some light on other development initiatives in the region over the past decade?
Sure. I think just to come back to the point of what the Prime Minister said, he said that, the day wouldn't be far away when instead of A for Apple, we will say A for Assam. I must admit that as an Assamese, it will be an immensely proud moment for me as and when that happens. Every step taken in that direction is a welcome step. The idea is that industries will come only if you make the atmosphere conducive for them to come. So few requirements or sort of few completely essential elements of investors to come in would be law and order. At least a quarter of a century ago, the situation was very different in terms of law and order, militancy. So we've seen that most of that is in the past now. Law and order has hugely improved. Militancy has been contained. Lots of groups have come overground. That's the first huge development that has taken place over the past 2 decades. The second big development is in terms of connectivity. And in the last 10 years, NDA government, there's been a lot of emphasis on improving connectivity, both in terms of road connectivity as well as rail connectivity, of course, air connectivity as well. I think one problem that many don't realize is that because of the weather conditions, because of floods, erosion, landslides, many of these areas become disconnected from rest of India. So it's very important that we have all-weather roads. So it is very important to have an all-weather road, an all-weather bridge, and that has come up in Dibrugarh district, for example, connecting Dibrugarh and Dhemaji. All this is important. I would say in the past 10 years, there has been a focus and an emphasis on creating the right infrastructure for investments to come in. I think the next phase would only be to invite industries that have a potential not just in the region, but also to the rest of mainland India, to rest of India, where it also becomes competitive for them to produce.
The Northeast Transformative Industrialization Scheme Unnati. Could you tell us more about this scheme and how is it accelerating the growth in the entire region?
There's been this focus, as I said, on industrializing the Northeast, on tapping its natural resources and putting it to commercial use. So recently, for example, there is a ministry of the Northeastern region. It's called the Donor Ministry. So they are actually the nodal ministry seeking investment. So they have minister concerned is Mr. Jyotiraditya Scindia. Recently, he went to Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and he held a roadshow. So the kind of things that you can do, all the Northeastern states have a very good, huge resource base in terms of skilled manpower who can run your service centers, knowledge process outsourcing, KPOs. So you can have IT enabled services. Hospitality sector is another sector which is where Northeast can provide excellent inputs in terms of manpower. So we have the requisite skill, we have the manpower. The focus is essentially to move away from the two sectors or three sectors that we've all known that Assam produces. Assam is the largest producer of tea in India. We've had very few people perhaps would know that digging in Upper Assam for oil began in 1890s. The Digboy refinery is one of the oldest functional refinery that is still functioning. Assam Oil Company used to be a separate company which has been in operation since then, 1901, when the refinery was actually set up. Work for it had started in the 1890s. So there is a lot of history, but traditionally these are only two or three sectors that we know. The new focus is to move beyond the traditional sectors and also tap into where the region has a lot of potential.
Now let's listen into what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said today in Guwahati about the policy changes that are being made.
आज भारत में इकोनॉमी के हर सेक्टर में बड़े रिफॉर्म्स हो रहे हैं. हमने ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस के लिए निरंतर काम किया. हमने इंडस्ट्री और इनोवेशन कल्चर को बढ़ावा देने का पूरा इकोसिस्टम तैयार किया है. स्टार्टअप के लिए नीतियां हो, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के लिए पीएलआई स्कीम्स हो, या मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनियां और एमएसएमईज को टैक्स में छूट देना हो, हमने हर एक के लिए बेहतरीन पॉलिसीज बनाई है.
Moving on, Mr. Fukan, the event also witnessed the signing of multiple MOUs, cementing Assam's status as a rising business hub. The sectors which were covered were renewable energy, healthcare, gas distribution, and manufacturing. I would like to inform our listeners that in the year 2018, when the first edition of Advantage Assam Summit was held, the state's economy was valued at 2.75 lakh crore. Today, the state has become the economy of approximately 6 lakh crores, and by 2030, Assam has a target to achieve $150 billion economy. How do you view this progress, and how will these investments fuel the momentum of growth in the entire region?
I think if all the MOUs translate into actual investments, it's an ambitious target, but only when you set the bar very high, only then you actually reach a fairly high level of achievement. For these targets to be achieved, investments will have to come in. And I would stress that private investments will have to come in. We've seen quite a few top, business leaders of the country attend the business summit today. So I think if all these, bigwigs who've attended the summit and who've shown interest in investing in the state, if these investments come through, I think it'll be very good for the youngsters. Many people who come out in search of jobs, people like me, I think they can stay back home.
And it's not just restricted to Assam, other states as well.
No, because I think many of these other neighboring states will gain, from, the first plant could be set up in Assam if it does well. The second plant could be set up in Tripura. Third plant could be set up in Arunachal. In fact, all the states, all the chief ministers have been invited to this event. If all this translates, if the MOUs, because the reason I keep saying if, because what you sign is a memorandum of understanding and eventually what is actually takes place on the ground, there is usually a gap, but the gap shouldn't be too much. And if all these MOUs really translate into investments, I think then it's very good news in terms of employment.
Speaking exclusively to Akashvani News, Dr. Dipankar Saharia, Senior Director TERI, said that the summit will help in comprehensive development of the state.
Assam is taking a new turn, and definitely with more investment coming in and a kind of employment generation that will happen with the impetus of the government for infrastructure development. That is the core requirement to develop. Assam is growing great, and we are there as a research institute. TERI is there to take forward the net zero initiative, the decarbonization part, the climate action part that TERI needs to contribute for the state. And we are having a MOU with Guwahati University to work together to work for the research requirements of the state and contribute to the state's development.
Mr. Fukan, digital revolution, artificial intelligence, progress in the semiconductors has been the talk of the town lately, and Prime Minister too emphasized on these subjects today. You also spoke about the semiconductor facility in Assam and how it has taken the center stage. But I would like to talk to you about artificial intelligence. How do you view this?
You can work on AI or machine learning from any part of the world. That's the beauty. There are for certain industries, for certain manufacturing units, location is of importance, connectivity is of importance. Here, if you have the talent pool, you can surely work. And we do have, there is IIT Guwahati. Guwahati University has been one of the oldest universities. Assam Engineering College. Then there are many other, there's NIIT Silchar, the National Institute of Information Technology. In terms of educational infrastructure, we are actually quite well placed. There has to be some incentive from the government in terms of giving incentives to startups. So why not? If AI can become Assam Intelligence, most welcome. It would be a very happy moment for all of us if that happens. But there has been a lot of emphasis. The next step of the computer revolution is the AI and ML phases. And I think if the leadership take the right steps now, it creates a momentum for the generation which is actually in the throes of this change that is happening to usher in bigger and greater changes in the future.
India has taken its environmental responsibilities very seriously, and you spoke about the refinery in Digboi. Could you also enlighten us with the facts at how the entire region is tapping on the available natural resources?
Yeah, so hydropower has been, which is a green source of energy. Hydropower has been very popular. Some states, what is called as the run of the stream hydro projects, which means that the turbines, the power turbines are run by the force of water that rushes in from streams which are at a height, and the water force, the velocity of water is so high that it turns the turbines and produces electricity. Quite a few MOUs have been signed. Arunachal Pradesh has been at the forefront of tapping natural energy, wind energy. There is potential for wind energy. Hydropower has been there. Then also there are gas fields in Upper Assam. There is a place called Duliajan, which is the headquarter of Oil India Limited. I think it'll be a great step if we can source the gas from Upper Assam to the bigger cities like Guwahati, Dibrugarh, Tinsukia, Jorhat. Gas is a clean energy. And these are all the potential. So there is potential for wind energy, there's potential for hydel energy, there's potential for gas. And these are all clean energy, with the exception of course, gas. Hydel and wind power are renewable sources of energy as well.
Lastly, Mr. Fukan, Prime Minister remarking that Assam is emerging as a gateway between Southeast Asia and India. To further this potential, he spoke about Unnati. How do you view these remarks of him?
It's very, very important. I think very few people would know that there exists a road from Assam, Upper Assam, that goes all the way up to Thailand. So I think it's a very important, significant comment, and in terms of a policy statement from the Prime Minister, because Assam and the entire Northeast is very strategically located. It's also important strategically to have a good presence there from both the private sector, and the focus should be more on commercial exchanges, and that should help things a little bit. So I think in terms of both strategy as well, it would do good if we had more industries and more commercial activity, and if the region actually served as a gateway to the Far East and the Southeast.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fukan, for enlightening us with all the facts about the Northeast India and specifically Assam.
Thank you so much.
You are listening to a discussion on Northeast India, an emerging investment hub. The participants were Sandeep Fukan, senior journalist, and Diksha Saxena, Akashvani correspondent.
Spotlight.